I'm a man with many tastes. Sometimes I'm in the mood for something light and cozy, then other times I want something more dark and atmospheric. As the title implies, this video is obviously gonna focus on the latter. We're also gonna focus on some lesser recommended titles as the channel tends to do. There's nothing wrong with it, but in videos like this, you often see the same games. You know what? Let's just run through them real quick. Just consider this the video before the video. The Shin Megami Tensei series. Besides some select games like Persona 4 and 5, all these are pretty dark. Nier Replicant and Nier Automata. These games are super popular, but yeah, they have like very atmospheric and melancholic worlds. The Parasite Eve series. I mean, the first one's a classic for sure, but there's a video on YouTube covering the series that has like 10 million views, so yeah, cat's out of the bag on that one. And lastly, but not least, is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Everyone and their grandma's been talking about this one, rightfully so, ourselves included. It's my personal game of the year, but yeah, let's spread the love. If you want to hear my full thoughts on Clair Obscur though, check out our video covering it. Alright, with all those popular entries out of the way, let's start the actual list. Here's an unranked list of 8 great, dark, and atmospheric JRPGs.
The light is your guide.
A dream is what keeps you going.
And to start this list off, we have Panzer Dragoon Saga. Panzer Dragoon Saga was released for the Saturn and developed by Team Andromeda, a subsidiary of Sega. It's the third game in the series and the first RPG. The first 2 games were rail shooters, whereas this one incorporates elements from those while turning it into a turn-based RPG. More on that in a bit. Like those games though, Saga has a dreary post-apocalyptic setting. I'll just say this now. Get used to me saying this because there's a lot of this on this list. Panzer Dragoon Saga was actually Sega's answer to Final Fantasy VII. Unfortunately, while critically it did extremely well, commercially it did not. The development behind it's a real tragedy because not only did the team disband after its release, but during the development, the team worked themselves to death. Sadly, I'm not exaggerating. Many of them said it was the hardest experience of their lives, and 2 team members even died from the stress and pressure being too much. All these surrounding circumstances just give Panzer Dragoon Saga a really sad legacy. This bleakness carries over into the game itself. You play as Edge, a mercenary hired by the Empire to guard some ancient artifacts. Things go awry though when he discovers a girl buried in a wall. He's then attacked by a group named the Black Fleet and their leader Kramen, who then kill his companions and seize the girl. He's then saved by a dragon and together they set out on a quest for revenge. Things get more complex from there of course, but that's the start. It is good. However, the atmosphere is the real standout here. The haziness of the Sega Saturn really adds to that lonely, desolate feeling when traversing around, especially during the dragon riding segments. It's a sparsely populated world and you really feel it. You can also travel on foot, where you can do your typical talking to NPCs, buying equipment, and stuff like that. Combat is like a combination of both turn-based and real-time. You can move around the battlefield to better target enemies' weak points, and there's this ATB-like system where you can perform different commands based on how many gauges you build up. So yeah, both positioning and risk versus reward play big roles here. Oh, and probably the coolest thing is you can morph your dragon into tons of different forms and they all have different stats and strengths and yeah, it's really cool. It changes the entire shape and everything. The last thing I'll say is the music here is damn good. Also get used to me saying this because we got some bangers today. But yeah, it's got like this otherworldly, tribal-like vibe and it's really interesting. Unfortunately, if you want to get your hands on Panzer Dragoon Saga, you're going to have to, well, make a lot of money, I guess. Oh god, it's kind of a disappointing payoff, but yeah, anyways, the point I'm trying to make is the game's expensive. Like, super, super expensive. Yeah. I got rent to pay, so I got the Japanese version. And yeah, if they're not gonna re-release it, then I say play it any way you can. Shout out to SNES Drunk. It's an absolute classic and comes highly recommended. The next game we have on our list is Fragile Dreams: Farewell Ruins of the Moon. Fragile Dreams came out for the Wii and was co-developed by Namco and Tricrescendo. For those that have played this game, you know why it's on this list. The atmosphere is the most standout aspect. It has like this really haunting and desolate and really eerie ambiance. The game takes place in a post-apocalyptic world near the ruins of Tokyo. You play as Seto, a 15-year-old boy whose grandfather just died, leaving him the last human left on Earth. Or so he thinks. He finds an old letter from him hinting at other survivors, so he sets out to find them. Along the way, he meets a mysterious girl named Rin, and I probably shouldn't say anything more as the mystery is a big part of the story. The plot is quite good though, and will have you wanting to know what happened. Gameplay in Fragile Dreams plays like a mix between an action RPG and a survival horror. Combat is pretty basic though. There's a 3-hit combo and not much else. Kinda some frustrating design choices too. Weapons can randomly break after battle and you cannot repair them, and you can only switch weapons at camp. Well, out of the ones not in your current inventory at least. Yeah, kind of annoying, but not a game breaker, just a weapon breaker I guess. The game shines more in the survival horror atmospheric part for sure. There's just this feeling of isolation and melancholic loneliness the game captures so well. The lighting and the presentation is just really good for a Wii game. The music, though, really sets the mood. There's a lot of piano arrangements, and they're all so beautiful. So yeah, I wouldn't go into Fragile Dreams expecting super engaging or tight gameplay. However, if you want a somber, slower paced, atmospheric experience, then Fragile Dreams might be worth checking out. Coming up next, we have Shadow Hearts and its sequel, Shadow Hearts Covenant. These games were released for the PS2 and developed by the company Saknoth, later renamed Nautilus. There was also a third Shadow Hearts game, but it's not dark at all, so yeah, I'm not going to talk about it here. If you're familiar with the channel, you should also be familiar with the Shadow Hearts series, as we've talked about it in numerous videos. There's just no way I couldn't talk about it in a list like this though, and it's not like they're that popular. These are like quintessential dark JRPGs and just had to be here. Shadow Hearts 1 and 2 has you playing as Yuri Hyuga, a Harmonixer with the power to transform into the monsters he defeats in battle. The first game in particular has a really strong horror and Lovecraftian aesthetic. Covenant is a little lighter in this aspect, admittedly. It's still pretty dark, just toned down a bit and balanced out with more wacky humor. Both games deal with alternate history and have you visiting real-life locations around the time of World War I. Most people would probably consider Covenant to be the better overall game. However, I am partial towards the atmosphere in the first Shadow Hearts game. I think the pre-rendered backgrounds add this horror painting type look and it just works really well. Covenant instead uses full 3D environments, and I guess most people would probably prefer this, but I don't know, I'm just pre-rendered background guy. I mean hell, we even have these on a shirt we sell. While I do like the atmosphere in the first Shadow Hearts better, I think I do prefer the music in Covenant. Town of Twilight, man, that song just hits. Gameplay is fairly similar in both. Both games have turn-based combat and use the Judgment Ring. This adds a timing element to battles and is pretty fun. I should also point out real quick that Shadow Hearts does actually kind of have a prequel in Kudelka. This one was on the PS1 and plays out a lot different. Battles are much slower and have more of a tactical focus. The game still drips in atmosphere though, as it takes place in a haunted monastery. I'm not going to talk about this one too much, as I have talked about it in detail in other videos before, but I at least wanted to give it a quick shout, as I know there'd be a lot of comments mentioning it if not. If you want to hear more about it though, check out our video from last year on 8 great horror JRPGs. I talk about it there. You can't go wrong with any of these games. However, I do feel Shadow Hearts 1 and Shadow Hearts Covenant are the better experiences. Coming up next, we have Valkyrie Profile. Valkyrie Profile was developed by Tri-Ace and released for the PS1. The setting here is a very grim and dark fantasy world based around Norse mythology. You play as the Valkyrie Lilith as you recruit fallen soldiers to fight in the Battle of Ragnarok. There is an overarching narrative, however, the game does place more focus on the individual character stories. Given that you're recruiting dead people, there's a lot of, death in the game. It's a pretty depressing world, not gonna lie.
You think it's foolish, brother, because you're content with what you have. You're wrong.
I just watched Berserk recently and it kinda reminds me of that actually. I mean, the character Arngrim was directly inspired by Guts himself. So yeah, if you like the setting and atmosphere of Berserk, you'll probably like it here too. The music really reflects this bleak and somber tone, at least in towns and story scenes. Dungeons, on the other hand, have some pretty rockin' tunes. The game plays like a 2D platformer with turn-based battles. In battle, your party members are mapped to different face buttons and you chain their attacks together to create combos, and yeah, it's a good time. I should also mention that Valkyrie Profile did actually get a sequel for the PS2. This one is also pretty dark. I might be talking about this one in an upcoming video though, so I'll wait to talk about it more. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to Vagrant Story. Why am I including it here? Well, it also starts with the V and came out for the PS1. That's a terrible reason, but yeah, there's another video idea coming up that I might talk about this one on, I'm not sure yet. Plus, I've talked about it a good amount before. Our video about difficult JRPGs is one. Again, if I didn't mention it though, I know there'd be comments doing so, and well, there probably still will be, but yeah, anyway. To center back in on the main thesis here, Valkyrie Profile is a very dark and atmospheric game. It's not for everyone, but it's extremely unique with exceptional character writing. The definition of a cult classic, for sure.
My skills will be dulled by opponents like this.
Starting off the second half of this list, we have Sugunai Atonement. Sugunai Atonement was developed by the company Cattle Call and came out for the PS2. On the surface, this kinda looks like a pretty generic, mid-looking RPG, and while it's not like super amazing, it is actually pretty unique. You play as a warrior named Race who climbs a tower and takes an ancient artifact, in result angering some gods, who then separate his soul from his body. You must atone for your sins by helping out a nearby fishing village by taking possession of certain villagers and helping them out with their problems. yeah, pretty unique. While the execution is extremely different, this aspect of helping out people with their problems kind of reminds me of Ni no Kuni. The village gradually changes throughout the game too, as you continue to help it thrive. So yeah, things actually get happier and more peaceful as the game goes on. In a lot of ways, it's a pretty cozy game. Now you might be asking, well, why is it on this list then? Well, first of all, it probably is the least dark game on this list. And secondly, the dungeons. These are pretty dark and atmospheric. The music helps a lot with this. It was composed by my favorite video game composer of all time, Yasunori Mitsuda, the absolute legend behind Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, and Xenogears. You can definitely hear it too. It's probably most similar to Chrono Cross, just way heavier of a Celtic vibe, not a tropical vibe, obviously. Like, I wouldn't say it's as good overall, but there are actually some tracks that would fit that OST quite well. Seriously, give it a listen yourself. It's on both his Spotify and his YouTube channel. It's like finding out your favorite band released an album you never knew about. Alright, before wrapping things up, let's talk combat real quick. It's turn-based, you can block and counter attacks to build up the special meter, and yeah. Each of the 4 face buttons executes a different type of guard, so there's a lot of timing involved. I thought the whole amulet magic system was pretty cool too. All in all, Sugunai may not be like an absolute top tier JRPG, however, it's not a bad time at all, and the premise is quite unique. The next game we have on our list is Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter. Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter was developed by Capcom and came out for the PS2. Despite me talking about Breath of Fire a lot on this channel before, I mean, we even made retrospectives over 3 and 4, I've never talked about the 5th entry, Dragon Quarter. And for most people, that probably suits them just fine. You see, Dragon Quarter is considered the black sheep of the series. I mean, it's not hard to see why. Look at Ryu and Nina in Breath of Fire 1 through 4. Now, look at them in Dragon Quarter. Okay, off-putting character design aside, here's the thing. Dragon Quarter's actually not that bad. You just can't compare it to any other Breath of Fire title. I think Capcom's biggest mistake was smacking that name on here. It only created expectations that it did not meet. I guess they thought it wouldn't sell otherwise, which, fair point, but still. All this being said, Dragon Quarter does have the darkest atmosphere in the series. Breath of Fire 4 may debatably deal with darker themes, however, it's juxtaposed with a more brighter, vibrant fantasy world. Meanwhile, Dragon Quarter takes place entirely underground. Humanity has been forced to leave the surface due to the ramifications of a war, which gives it this dystopian, post-apocalyptic feel. The atmosphere is dark and gloomy and oppressive and just bleak. There's this caste-like system, and Ryu is this lower-class citizen trying to help Nina, who is this test subject that underwent some experimental surgery, reach the surface. It's actually a pretty interesting story, it's just told in a way that won't click with everyone. The game has some roguelike elements, and you're supposed to restart it numerous times, carrying over stuff from your previous playthrough. Doing this, you also unlock new parts of the story, and can only see the best ending this way. It is a shorter playthrough, but yeah, it's not for everyone. I do think the gameplay is pretty fun though. You can move around the battlefield and perform actions based on the amount of AP you have, and you can optimize your AP by chaining attacks together to create combos. It plays out very differently, but it kinda reminds me of Xenogears in a way. Oh yeah, Ryu can also transform into a dragon like previous entries, however, if you do it too much and this meter reaches 100, you have to restart. So yeah, it takes some strategy. All this said, the best aspect about Dragon Quarter might be the music. It was composed by none other than Hitoshi Sakamoto, the guy behind the music in Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy XII. Need I say more? Dragon Quarter is definitely not for everyone. I mean, that is absolutely a fact. But if you want a dark and gritty and really unique roguelike-esque experience, it might be worth checking out. Coming up next, we have Pandora's Tower. Pandora's Tower was developed by the company Ganbarion and came out for the Wii. Yeah, 2 Wii games on this list. Probably not what one would expect in a list about dark JRPGs. This one is even way darker than Fractal Dreams, at least in its premise. Pandora's Tower has you traveling to 13 towers so you can defeat these powerful masters and then harvest their flesh and then feed them to your girlfriend. Yeah, I'm not joking. You see, Elena, your girlfriend, has been inflicted with a curse that gradually turns her into a monster, unless she grotesquely eats the flesh of these aforementioned masters. And when I say grotesquely, I mean it. These scenes are, pretty unsettling to watch. It's not just shock value though, there is some substance here. Gameplay in Pandora's Tower comes in 2 parts. The action-based combat of the towers, and sort of this dating sim element with Elena. You can increase your relationship with her by giving her gifts, spending time with her, answering questions, and yeah, pretty much how it works in real life, I guess. And certain events will only trigger based on the time of the day you see her. All this stuff takes place around the observatory where you can craft items and upgrade gear and stuff like that. Now, the actual gameplay takes place in the various 13 towers. Here you'll be solving puzzles, battling enemies, and well, I guess that's pretty much it. It's super fun though. You have a sword and a chain that lets you do a lot of really cool stuff. You can use it for traversal methods, for puzzles, you can throw enemies around with it, you can even take off their weapons or armor with it. Like I said, pretty cool. The coolest part though, might be the boss fights. These take some inspiration from Shadow of the Colossus, where you have to figure out their strategy and how to optimally attack their weak point. It's not just straight action, it's like an environmental puzzle, too. I didn't mention it earlier, but there is a time limit in this game that can be lowered, by the way, and how many of these bosses you defeat will determine one of the 5 endings you'll get. It's some pretty interesting stuff. Overall, Pandora's Tower is a really unique, genre-blending experience that doesn't get talked about too much these days. Out of the 3 Operation Rainfall titles, it's easily the most obscure. So yeah, if you want a Zelda-like, Shadow of the Colossus-like, dating sim RPG, then Pandora's Tower is one to look into. And to finish off this list, we actually have 2 games, Folklore and Forever Kingdom. Now you're probably like, wait, what? Why isn't this list supposed to be 8 games only? And to that I say, first of all, the title's been alive, talked about 20 games already. It's really just to fit our titling theme, you know? Plus, you're really gonna complain about me talking about more games?
Are you not entertained?
And secondly, I just talked about Folklore in our last video about obscure action RPGs. However, it's just extremely fitting for this list, so I couldn't not talk about it. In all honesty, it's just really bad timing. I mean, how many videos has our channel put out now, and how many times have I talked about Folklore? Twice, this video and last video. So yeah, it is what it is. I'm gonna give an abridged version here, but just check out that video if you want to hear more detail on it. Alright, Folklore, a PS3 game developed by Game Republic. It's half part murder mystery and half part supernatural monster capturing action RPG. The murder mystery part takes place in a small seaside Irish village, and it's some pretty intriguing stuff. It's a very eerie, atmospheric setting. Combat takes place in the Netherworld, where you fight against monsters based on Celtic mythology and then can capture them like Pokemon. You then assign them to the 4 face buttons where they all have different attacks, and it's pretty cool. Combine this all with a dual protagonist system, and yeah, Folklore is a very unique, cool little title. Alright, now moving on to Forever Kingdom. It was released for the PS2 and developed by From Software. Yes, the From Software. The same team behind Monster Hunter Diary, Poka Poka, Iru Village. Oh, and Dark Souls and Elden Ring and stuff too, I guess. Forever Kingdom is a prequel to Evergrace, which is a pretty not that good of a game. As a kid, I wanted to love it. I mean, the box art looked so cool, but yeah, it was just pretty weird and not that great. Thankfully, Forever Kingdom is better. It's still a very weird game. I mean, like, really weird, but it is better. Well, in my opinion at least. Evergrace does have an even stranger atmosphere, and the combat is more of a precursor to Dark Souls. I just think Forever Kingdom feels more polished and plays better. Kinda. It's still pretty jank. Controls are tighter, and we now have a party of 3 that we can swap between whenever. You do all share the same health though, so there's that. Equipment plays a big factor, and based on what you currently have equipped and their elemental attributes, you're going to be switching through characters a lot. The story has you playing as Darius, the same protagonist from Evergrace. The events here take place a few years before that game, I believe. In this one, your parents get killed, you're on a quest for revenge, and there's also these strangers who kidnap this girl, so you go after them, and yeah, I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's a pretty confusing plot, not told very well. The game definitely prioritizes setting a surreal, mysterious, dreamlike atmosphere over telling a cohesive story. This is largely in part thanks to the music. Good God, the music. Guys, I have listened to a lot of JRPG music over the years. From all of our videos to our music compilation playlists that have like over 1 million views. Yeah, these ears have been around. So I don't say this lightly, but Forever Kingdom has some of the most creative, unique, experimental music I've ever heard in a JRPG. Hell, video game period. Now, I didn't say the best, but creative, absolutely. It's like an avant-garde mishmash of various genres that can teeter between chaotic genius and, dear God, what have my ears done to deserve this? More of the former for me personally, as I kinda love it. Not everyone will though, and that's okay. It gives the game this extremely strange, otherworldly, almost alien-like vibe. Kota Hoshino, I was not familiar with your game. Rest assured though, I'm gonna be checking out your other works now. Just like the OST, as an overall game, Forever Kingdom is not for everyone. It's a strange game made by strange people for other strange people. And I don't mean that in a bad way. So yeah, if you want to wander around unique environments, battling creepy enemies while listening to weird music, then Forever Kingdom is one to check out.
Push it in! Work your body, work your body.
Alright, and that about wraps up this video. Thanks for watching everyone, we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please either consider hitting that like button or subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. What are some other dark and atmospheric JRPGs I didn't talk about here? I covered a pretty good amount, but there's still more out there for sure. Let us know in the comments below. As always, just want to give a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, and of course, an extra special shout out to our top patrons, Achieve, Chris Carnaccio, Derek Drost, Jam, Jesse Spencer, J-Ho, Joe Bro the Hobo, J Shaw Drums, Jump Rock, Cyano, and Spankwise. All of your generosity and support is very much appreciated. Other than that, thanks again for watching everyone, and hope you have an awesome day. This is Corbin from Gaming Broductions. Until next time.